Yeah, but that's the thing I like crave with theater, and that's why I think I'll always come back, is there's nothing like that exchange of energy with your audience. Whether you're in a black box or you're in a Broadway house, it's like you feel the pulse and the heartbeat, and there's certain moments where a line is said and you feel all of the air taken out for your character, but for the house, and it's like, you know, like it feels so universal, and that's so unique and special. And we had that show that he's mentioning where we just got off stage and we're like, why does it feel so easy? It feels like we're just present, the lines are there, jokes are happening, audience is with us. And it's just like, that's just theater. That's just what can happen. That's how it is so transformative and so effective. You know what I mean?
Please welcome Paul Bettany and Jeremy Pope. Well, first off, Jeremy, welcome back to Broadway. And Paul, welcome to Broadway. Let's hear it for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, the collaboration is your Broadway debut. How wonderful has it been, Paul?
It's been terrible. No, it's been wonderful. This always felt like a New York story. We, originally we made the play in London, and but it always felt like this was the right space for it. So it's been really wonderful to be embraced by the audience.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy, you're back at the Samuel J. Friedman Theater, where you made your incredible Broadway debut in Choir Boy. How does it feel coming back to where it all began at MTC and being back in the theater again?
Yeah, it's a full circle moment. I think MTC, yes, it was my Broadway debut, but they gave me my first job in 2013. So to kind of have this moment is really special. And like Paul said, we spent some time doing it in other places. So to know that we're coming to New York, and I've been wanting to get back to Broadway, I just knew it had to be the right thing. After my little stunt of doing 2 shows, I was pretty tired because it's hard and the schedule is tricky. So I wanted it to be, a limited run, if you will, but something that I could really sink my teeth in. And this project presented itself, and to do it with Paul, we've been able to just spend time and really find these characters together. So it's such a beautiful thing to feel so comfortable in this role with him, and then bring it to what felt like home, which is Samuel J. Friedman with Lynn Meadow and all of that. So just kind of like a full circle moment.
Are you in the same dressing room?
I'm in the same dressing room. I have the same pillows that I bought in 2018. So it's pretty fun, pretty chill.
Yeah. And how wonderful is it now that you made your Broadway debut there? Now Paul's doing the same thing in the same theater, but you're able to watch him go through this whole thing, what that means to you.
No, it's super cool. Again, we've spent so much time in these roles and getting this script together and just with each other. So, I think I've had my moment in 2018 in this theater. So to kind of share that with Paul is really beautiful. We've just grown to be so close, and just like we talked about, actually friends forever. So as our show as we're starting to think about our show closing, we're just like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna see each other? And so we're trying to figure that out. But it really has been a beautiful experience.
Yeah. Having Jeremy there for your Broadway debut, Paul, what that's meant to you?
Oh, it's meant everything. I remember coming in on the first day of rehearsal. I hadn't been on stage for 25 years. Still. I mean, I'm 51, but I think a playing age of what, 30? What do we think? Don't laugh. So I was nervous, and I'd learned the whole script for the first day of rehearsals, Jeremy walked in, and we just sort of began, and he had learnt the entire script too. And I thought, well, now we're going to be able to go places together, because now we can play, So yeah, it's been wonderful working with Jeremy. It really is. We've been doing this in different iterations: the film, the play, now the Broadway Run, for over a year now, and. Sometimes you're exhausted, and sometimes you're tired of the show. You are, and then it starts, and it's when Jeremy walks on, it's as close to flying in your dreams as you can get. I don't know. It just he lifts me. So it's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah. I want to go back to the beginning. How did the collaboration happen for each of you? Because these are larger-than-life people. It's Andy Warhol, Jean-Michel Basquiat. I mean, did you say no first, Paul, when this was offered to you?
I did, yeah. No, I did. I had a dear friend of mine, Dennis O'Sullivan, who is the producer of the movie, and he called me up and said, "Would you like to play Andy Warhol?" And I went, "Absolutely not. No, I don't want to do that." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I think there might be a reason, and maybe there is, you judge for yourself, that he is always a cameo and not a lead." Because I think it's very difficult to get beyond the sort of, the glasses, the wig, and the sort of carefully curated, monosyllabic, public performance. And then, so I said no. I had actually seen their Basquiat and Andy's collaboration remounted at the Whitney, and it was extraordinary. And I had all of the books, but I thought it wasn't a good idea. And then he sent me the diaries, and the diaries are dictated to Pat, his assistant, and he's clearly speaking in these long, circuitous sentences, which sound more like Truman Capote than the Andy Warhol that I had in my head. And I went, well, wait a second. So I started calling some people up that knew him, Candice Bergen, for instance, and the people that I spoke to said, no, he could be quite verbose in private. And so I went, well, maybe there's a way to do this. And I really didn't know until we did, we did that week of work on the script.
A workshop of the script. That was the first time we met, because we hadn't met before. And that was the day that we're referring to where he came in pretty much off book.
And I was blown away by Jeremy, and I went, you know what? Maybe there's a way to make this boat seaworthy, so it really was meeting Jeremy, and he was such a presence as he walked into the room, and I think weirdly he and I were both feeling the same way, like I'm not sure I should be here, and
right, yeah.
And I don't know, I totally fell in love with him as an artist, and I thought, well, actually, maybe there's a way through this.
And Jeremy, for you, did you have trepidations, like when you first read the play? Did you say yes right away, or?
I read the play, and I hopped on a Zoom with our director Kwame, our writer Anthony, and just talked about the idea, because I think what the script was at that time was more so an idea of what they wanted it to be. And it was conversations that they maybe could have had, and it was up to us to kind of come in and imbue it with style and heart and stakes, like just certain things like that. And Anthony was open to our interpretation of that. So for me, my process was I met with them, I was excited about the opportunity. And then it was weird. It was like, Kwame, we were emailing, he was like, Spirit feels right, because Kwame, our director, he had worked with Dominique Morisseau, who wrote Ain't Too Proud, he knew Terrell McCraney, so it kind of felt like fam, like, oh, we know each other, everyone's looking out for each other, like this is gonna work itself out. And then everyone went radio silent on me. And I remember like, I was pretty like butthurt about it, because I was like, I knew that they were meeting another actor. And that's the thing that like gets in your head. So you're like, who is it? Who is it? You know what I mean? And so I probably know them. But it's that part of like trusting the universe and trusting like who's meant to be in the room will be in the room. I've had that is so much of being an artist, because there are things that are meant for you, and then there are things that are not. So I remember there was this coffee table book that I really wanted to get, which was that book that we have with all of their pictures of the time they spent together. And I was like, I'm not gonna buy it because I didn't get the job. Like that's how butthurt I was. But again, like my story has always been life has to do what life has to do. And it was like months later, it found its way back to me. And you don't really, at that point, you can't care about what happened in between. It's about, it's here now. Are you interested? Does it make sense in the timing? So it was like, let's have this workshop in New York. and let's see kind of how we all feel. That's what it was. It was to get me and Paul in a room to read the script out loud. We didn't want to do it virtually. And that's when I think the magic happened, because I fell in love with Paul and his way of approaching work and the openness. Kwame was brilliant and beautiful, had so many great ideas. And it was a huge ask to ask us to go, let's commit to this script and these roles for over a year. And they wanted the same actors for London, for the film, and for New York. So, that's, you kind of have to just surrender and trust. But I knew like in that workshop, watching him work, very similar to a way that I try to work and want to work and show up to the character. So I was like, if anything, there's going to be something to gain from just being around someone who does that. So thus the journey began.
Well, let's talk about that, because normally there's a first read through, but you had a work session like for a week.
Yeah.
And we had missed all of this during COVID, so I can only imagine what it must have been like to have like the writer, the director, and the two of you in the room, all four of you, like discovering this piece.
Yeah.
So what was that week like for each of you?
Yeah, I'll start. I think it was like, those are my favorite. I love that time because it is like yes and. Everyone's throwing things in.
Yeah.
Anthony writes pretty fast, so he'll have a draft of a thing and then we're adding things, and it really is just playtime. And I love when everyone's in that space, because you really just kind of snowball off of each other. And we did the same thing for the movie. And I don't know, it's just very freeing to be in a space like that, where the writer is so generous and open, and the director, no one has an agenda. Yeah. It's all about trusting the people that are in the space. So I feel like that week definitely informed us when we started actual play rehearsals, because by then we were kind of already on our feet, and it was like we were starting to block the show. So you kind of are ahead of yourselves in a way where, you can just really start to do work and really start to understand more layers of the characters and the story and the why, and things that you maybe aren't seeing, and things that are underneath the page, things that you need to bring up.
No, I love that, because like you said, there was no agenda with anybody in that room. And I understand that Anthony would rewrite stuff after you two would work on things, right? Which I find fascinating.
Yeah.
Not every playwright does that.
No, not every playwright does that. Terrell McCraney was similar in that way. He would ask me, if it's not coming out of my mouth the right way, what do you want to say? And we would workshop that. And sometimes a lot of, Anthony did his thing, but some of the things that feel so nuanced and honest with these characters usually come best from the people that are playing them. So Paul would just say things that are brilliant, and there's no other way to say it but the way that he said it. So a lot of the time it was that collaboration and that process together, and him just being open to allowing us to do that, which he was.
Yeah. Did you want to add to that, Paul? Because like I said, you had not been on stage for a while, and this seemed like it was such a unique experience about how this show was put together.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think that yes, it felt like a real family or real friend group, I suppose, and that continued into the making of the movie. When we were converting it takes place in a very confined space, two different studios, my studio and then his studio, opening it up, and we all decided, everybody got on planes from London and LA, and we all converged. I have a house up in Vermont, country place, and I just got a bunch of food and a bunch of vino, and I was cooking for everybody, and we all sat and we just worked through the script and threw out ideas of things that we would want to see. If I was an audience member, what would I want to see Andy and Jean doing together? And again, Anthony was incredibly generous and open to that, and receptive. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have both worked with some of the best directors, including Kwame. What makes Kwame such a special and unique director?
His heart. His heart. He just cares. He's always cared from day one. And it sounds weird, but that sometimes feels rare. It's like people will pretend to care. and that's fine. It's, you learn how to navigate in the business through that. But to have a director that really cares and is genuine and that cares about the soul, I think for me, it was me and him as far as Black men in this space, so it was about making sure we're honoring Basquiat in a way that feels intentional and not like we're exploiting him and his heart, because he was so vulnerable and raw and honest. So I needed a director that was just going to be as raw and as vulnerable and as honest, as this human was. And so I just credit his heart and his soul, because the thing that, is very real and honest is this was his, when we were making the film, this is his kind of first feature film.
Yeah.
And, there's sometimes we go, well, how do I trust that? How do I know? But his intentions were always clear and his heart was always pure. And I feel like I can always trust that, because I know like that heart will inform all the right decisions, like it will do the right thing when asked to. And that's what we felt. We felt taken care of. I mean, that's, I think we felt the same.
100%.
I know that we felt the same.
And I think he's a great storyteller, Kwame, and he never pretended. He's incredibly accomplished theatre director. Runs a house. I mean, he really is. And when we went into making the movie, he never pretended he knew more than he did, and that makes me feel safe. And so, if he can come and ask me questions, Jeremy questions, and really canvass opinion, I think that's one of his great skills is listening. It's his vision. He will make the decision, but he absolutely, when he doesn't know, doesn't pretend to, and that makes me feel safe.
And he even did that when we were in rehearsals for the play.
Correct.
He's one of those directors, he doesn't give notes, he gives observations. And as an actor, then you're ready to hear it all. Where I feel like sometimes if someone has a note for you, you take it personal, because you've crafted it and you're like, he's not seeing what I'm doing and whatever. But for him to be like, this is an observation, and him to say it and go, well, you can use it or throw it away. Like if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And for him to trust us to go like, well, on stage, you're gonna have to soar and figure it out. So I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. And I felt like that was such an interesting way for him to collaborate with a performance that feels so personal for both of us, because it really is him just kind of on the outskirts, almost like, this kind of coach just watching you and going, try this with this, or try that and see how it feels. And then you try it and go, I didn't like the way it feels. He goes, great, all right, moving on. Like you gotta love how it feels and you gotta find it for you. So that's something I remember early on, is it wasn't ever note sessions of him telling us what we did wrong or what he was looking for, which is like, this is what I observed. And most of the notes would just be like, you're brilliant, you're great, I loved that, do that again, like it would be that, so that was very special in kind of creating this thing from the stage to the film and back to Broadway.
Yeah. Paul, your observations on Kwame.
Well, sort of, like I said, my trust in him came from his honesty about the stuff that he didn't know, but also he always leads. He's a charmer, you gotta be if you run a house, right? Yeah. But he's got to squeeze money out of all those donors, but he always when giving you a note leads with a positive, and then is really honest about, if you disagree, and he says, well, what is it you're trying to do in that moment? And saying, it's really not landing for me in that way. Can we, and I just feel safe when I feel that somebody isn't intimidated by me, frightened by what my response might be, or frightened by my pushback. He's always really honest. There was a speech that I give at the end of the play, and he says, I'm going to cut the speech. And I went, I really wish you wouldn't. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, for two reasons. One, I haven't worked on that yet, and I don't think you've seen the potential of what it could be. And also, when I first read the script, this was the speech that made me say yes to doing it. He went, "That's good enough for me." He went, "If that's it, that's good enough for me. Let's move on. We don't need to talk about it any longer." And I was like, "Really?" And he went, "I mean, because if you really..." He went, No. If this is the reason you wanted to do this play, it's staying in there." And I just felt endlessly supported by him. You know,
The whole watching the show, it just seems so organic, what you all went through. It's so beautiful. I wish you could step out of yourselves and watch yourselves work of what we saw. If you haven't seen the collaboration, it's been extended again through February 11th. It's one of the most brilliant pieces of work you'll see with 4 brilliant actors. I mean, talk a second about your two fellow, the other two people in your show.
Yeah, which is, they're great. Krista Rodriguez.
Eric.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
Yeah.
'Cause I can't imagine, like, it was like 2 days after we had wrapped the movie, we're coming in this space, and I wanted to be very sensitive to, like, not saying, like, this is what we did. Yeah. We used to do this. It was like, what are we going to do? Like, bring them a part of the family so that they can feel like they can ask questions and make choices and learn. Because it's like, yeah, we're off book, but you don't have to, like, that doesn't have to be your journey. Like, let's find this together. And they came in, like, ready to do their scenes, and like they were so over prepared in a way that allowed us to find new things and to play. And I remember us just being, especially with Krista and Eric, but Krista was making these choices with this character that was so thrilling, because it's like this character was still evolving itself after I had seen it, you know, in London and then in the film, and each actress has done it so different. So that was beautiful to kind of witness. And, you know, they're just lovely. And we huddle up right before, you know, we go out every night, and we talk about who's the show for, what are we doing it for, what do we want to think about? Because while me and Paul spend the most time on stage, we know that it's all of us pulling this thing together, you know, and I never for a moment want to think that it's just me and Paul, or it's just me. Like, it truly is your cast and your crew making this happen, you know what I mean? So I feel very grateful that they joined on yes and amen, and they were ready to, like, join the family and help us be the best versions of ourselves in this iteration of it.
Yeah. Paul, do you want to add to that? I mean, having those two now for the Broadway run?
Well, sort of everything Jeremy just said. I think it's a hard task to come in and play those parts. I think Krista is uniquely equipped to be able to. It's a very if you've seen the, has anybody seen the play?
Oh yeah.
It's a very hard part. She comes in hot, and she comes in and she has two really opposing intentions, and to be able to play those two things at once is really difficult and high level stuff. And I think she's so extraordinary, and it changes every night what she does, and so committed, you know, to the role and the era, and really sensitive to what the vagaries of being a woman in that milieu at that time were. You know, I've loved working with them both, and I agree with what Jeremy is saying, which is seeing different people play those parts whilst you're sort of continuing on has been really revelatory, in that you get to see these entirely different interpretations that all have worth and meaning, and still you know, chime with what we're doing. So yeah, it's been amazing.
That's great. You know, Warhol and Basquiat are such larger-than-life, iconic figures. Were there a few specific things you could mention that set you on your path to discovering them and bringing them to life on stage? Like you said, there's books and there's so much available on them. It's like, where do you begin? What do you do? Right. How do you put it in? How do you put Basquiat into Jeremy? How do you put Warhol into Paul? Right. What were those specific things at sort of different points?
For me, I have a thing that I do when I approach it, which is, what do I want? And we all know that. We all know that that's what actors, you know, work on, is what does the character want? What's their objective, and all of that. But also, what are they really scared of? And what makes them feel safe? And And for me, more than any other character I've played, the what are they scared of and what makes them feel safe is the thing that gave me whatever my version of Warhol is that his relevancy has saved him from being terrified. And I think it's hard for, unless you're over 60 or an art historian, to understand how much Warhol has changed the way the world looks in terms of graphic design and everything. He made himself into a star. His fear, I think, was so powerful that he changed the world into viewing him as a star. And now there's this young man chasing his heels, and that is terrifying. That obscurity is I think, terrifying for I don't know if it's the truth, and why would you ever let the truth get in the way of a good story? So my version of it is, that he is just terrified of slipping back into being this little boy. I mean, imagine what life was like for the young Andy Warhol in Pittsburgh. Imagine. So what are you scared of, and what makes you feel safe? For me.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Jeremy, for you.
For me, it's always interesting how you find your way in of notable figures and people, that audiences have connection with. But for me, it's always soul. It's always heart, and especially Basquiat. So you have the art, but you go, what is his art trying to say? And I think he had a very direct connection from mind, heart, and soul to canvas. You can often see words reflected on canvas, crossed out, political statements, artist, boxers, like whatever he was feeling in said moment. So you kind of, for me, you look at the art and you interpret and you imagine. And, you read the books, you see the interviews, you do all those things. And I think it's whatever is resourceful for you and helps you, And so the art was a big thing for me. And then his family has put up King Pleasures here in the city. And I just went there so many times, I think like over 15 times. Anytime we were free or I had time, I would just go and I would sit in that space. This is a space that was curated with his art, but by his sisters, and it's how his family wants us to remember him. And I feel like we already know how the world wants us to see Basquiat, and hip hop and culture has done the Basquiat thing. There's the locks and there's this and but I'm like, how was he, who was he as a son? Who was he as a brother? Who was he as a cousin? Like, how do they remember him? And I feel like those people, those family members, your chosen family members, they usually know the most unfiltered version of you. So I would go in that space and just take things and try to let that inform my performance and the words and the text and the stakes and the situation. I can imagine, or I can imagine a little bit, just being a Black artist taking space in a predominantly white industry and the cost of that, and being so vulnerable and being so rare, and how a lot of people will want to just take as much as they can. And you ultimately knowing they'll do this thing and then they'll just find the next thing to take out. So you kind of surrender to this idea of being chosen because it feels nice to be chosen. You spend a lot of your time as artists, as actors, as creatives, feeling the need to be chosen because that changes where your comma goes, or that changes how many health weeks you have. It's a very real thing. It's survival as an artist. So that sometimes contradicts with heart and soul and what you feel. So I feel like he wrestled with that, how to stay honest and true, but lean into this fantasized idea of art and the exploitation of art and exploitation of graffiti. And so that was my way in, and ultimately just trying to stay as honest as I could with this gentle soul that is mysterious. I think even in reading books and watching videos, I don't think you can say, oh, that's Basquiat, you know what I mean? Or he was always this way. I think he was just a unicorn, if you will.
See, but what I also loved about the show is you showed us the human side of both these men. like you said, what Warhol was afraid of, and seeing this young one come in who may, take the crown away or whatever else, and then you're trying to find your way. And it's quite fascinating to watch. And that's what I loved, that you play these larger-than-life people, but you show the human side of them, like what was him as a son like? What was Warhol afraid of? That's what I loved about this show the most, was just the human side you show of both these gentlemen and how they found themselves into each other.
Yeah.
To work together and collaborate.
Right.
Let's talk about wigs, hair, makeup, and costume. Because, wait, just look at the pictures of them in the photos for those of you who have not seen this yet. How that played into you defining your characters and the input you wanted to have into of how you wanted like the hair to be and everything else. Talk about that.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah. Well, it was very different in London.
Yeah. Oh, was it?
We had different wigs, and I think I've worked with the same wig person for all my career, a woman called Carol Robinson. She's extraordinary. Directors are often very frightened of wigs. They say, no, I hate wigs, and I can always see them, and I always think, no, you can only see the ones that are bad, and you've missed all the ones that are great. And so we did a thing in London, and then she was always kind of disappointed in it, and then for this, she actually got in touch with the Warhol Museum and got to see how the actual wigs were constructed and made them exactly the same. So they're the half human hair and they're half yak belly hair, if anybody's interested. That's what it is. It was really important to me, and it became important for the film because we wanted to sort of get into further. What's Andy look like without a wig, for instance? Nobody knows. So it was great to get into all of that stuff, and we were able to do. I had a great prosthetics team, which we can't do in the theatre, but the work that they did in the film is really extraordinary. And for me, it's important in that you want to get as close visually as you can, in the same manner in which you're striving to get close emotionally and intellectually with the character. Why not? Why not provide that? And so now, because of the film, we have the use of 3 wigs during one play, and that's been great. But I also know you felt very strongly about hair and
yeah, it's particular. I mean,
we changed a lot from London for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think London for us was, everyone was just trying to figure out what is this thing that we're doing. So we were really in the script. Like, I remember it was like costume fittings were late, hair fittings, because we were just spending all of our time into what is this baby, what is this thing? And then once we got to kind of step away and go, okay, visually what happens? And we added the DJ, and we're like, what does that look like? And our costumes, we got to the world started to inform itself a little bit more. But I was always very particular about the wigs. And that's just because I've, working in this industry, sometimes working with black hair is hard and not everyone knows how to do that. So you always want to flag it early. So it's like, because I know that sometimes people just don't know a black stylist. They don't know. It's not like you can just call them. They got to ask a friend who knows a friend who has a homie. It's like such a process. So I'm like, let's start this process now. Like, call who you need to call to figure it out. You know what I mean? So that I don't have to take the L for that. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one that's going to be on stage looking crazy. Real talk. You know what I mean? So, but when we got to the movie and they knew that I was passionate about that, we were able to find this woman, Karen, who really just, she came over to my house, and I remember she was braiding my hair down, and she was like, "You trust me?" And I was like, "You trust me?" And she was like, "Yeah." So we're like, we're gonna go on this journey together, because the thing about, Jean's hair is, it was free locks. Yeah. So that's not really a style that just grows from the hair. So you're like, how do you style something that isn't styled? And how do we, there's so much history behind when people decide to grow their hair out and why they choose to do free locks and how that informs strength and him being Haitian. Like, we just wanted to get into that. So she was running through Harlem. We were in New York. We were asking friends and homies, and we knew we got it right when we had a fitting. We put the wig on, and she sent it to a homie, didn't say anything. And they were like, "How long has he been growing his locks?" and they just thought it was growing from my hair. So that's when we were like, all right, we're ready to camera test. And that was literally the day before our camera test. So it was like up until the last kind of hour, we were working to make sure that it didn't feel like a character on top of me. It needed to feel like it was a part of me. And yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of the wigs. I think they're great. And like you said, it brings you closer. Because I think with someone like Jean and Andy, that's what people want to see. So when we come on stage and we look like them, they're like, okay, I'm in. And then they're down to go on this like excavation journey that we're going to do of the heart and soul. But I feel like it'd be harder to do that if the wig was bad, or they're like, I can see, like then you're dealing with other things. So shout out to our team for really spending the hours and money to make sure that it was right.
It's flawless to look because you get lost when you see the piece. You think Jean-Michel is on stage, you think Andy Warhol is on stage, and I've been following both of them for my whole entire career, like the Liza Minnellis, the Warhols. I'm obsessed with him. And I'm watching the show and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not Andy Warhol, it's Paul Bettany. But it's like, you take us on this incredible journey, and I know that was very important for both of you, that the look was perfect. Right. You both have to paint in the show, and you paint the pictures all over again. What was that process like for both of you?
Tell me about your painting.
Yeah, I get off very lightly in the painting ratio. You have a lot.
You could probably show them right here how you.
Yeah, I just go like this.
Yeah.
A little bit of this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do a little bit of that. Looks similar.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, so it's 127 shows
that we've done.
Yeah. So you've done 127 of those paintings.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
And they must exist somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then including all the ones that we did during
rehearsals
and the movie.
A lot of painting. A lot of painting.
This man has a lot of painting to do.
No, in Act 1 we paint, but it's imagined, and then in Act 2 I really take the paint to the canvas. And I remember when we first started rehearsing that, I was like, I was terrified. It was just so much to think about because I'm not a painter. I am now, but I wasn't a painter, so I was just like trying to think about the lines and what's my character doing, and then you're like, you need me to paint. How much? Gosh. You know what I mean? And then they're like, and then we're gonna film it and show the audience. Why would you do that? Like, leave a little room for error. You know what I mean? Like, but it's actually really thrilling, and it. I love that we recreate this moment, and you kind of watch it. It feels like, I don't know, when I used to come to New York years ago, you'd be like in Times Square and watching those guys do like the paintings of like space, and you're just like so enamored by their process. So I love that we kind of further go into the way that Jean approaches the canvas and how in this heightened moment he's able to kind of bring things to life and watch.
And Andy. I love that it's held back till then.
Yeah,
till
I think it's earned.
Till the end of the second, the last act. Because Kwame was really, he didn't want us. He said, I don't care about the art. I want the audience. I want the youngest person in the audience to go, I'm going to look up Basquiat, and you know what I mean. I want to know them and their heart and their minds it's sort of the law of diminishing returns. What are you going to do? Paint as well as Basquiat on stage? You're not. You know what I mean? Or paint as well as Andy Warhol on stage? You're not. But we can get you close to imagining that's what they're doing. And I think the delayed gratification of finally seeing him paint was an incredibly smart decision of Kwame's to resist. There's the temptation to always have the locked off top shot of, I don't know, Pollock painting or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, I get it. He was, I get it. I want to see him not painting. I want to see Andy Warhol not painting. I want to see Basquiat not painting. What are they like in those moments that we know nothing about? So I thought that was really a smart decision of Kwame's, because of course neither myself or Jeremy are ever going to be able to produce that for real. It's just,
Yeah. Is it freeing for you, Jeremy, when you're up there doing that now?
Yeah, it's freeing, and it just kind of allows me, Jeremy, to step into this, like, the mind of Jean of just trusting. I feel like it's so easy as an artist to be a perfectionist and want things to go a specific way, but to leave room for it to flow and to find itself. And that was the only way that Jeremy was gonna get through painting every night, it's gonna look different, it's gonna feel different. Because it was, well, what paint do I need? And you almost want someone to go, you grab this paint and then you do that, you use this crayon. But it was like, I had to find that. And they're kind of scattered around the stage. So it became a part of the blocking of like, what do I need? And how do I want to do this? And when do I want to do it? And when do I want to? So like that freedom was nice to explore and to trust myself that I would find it and that the painting would get done. You know, there was no rush, that we would have the time. And if not, we'd go back and rehearse it and make sure it was right. So, I actually don't think about it anymore. It's kind of like we get to act 2 and then I'll be in the middle of like, oh my God, I'm painting, like Basquiat, again, you know what I mean? And we've had some people that have actually bought the paintings, which I didn't know was a thing, but they've bought and I guess the money goes to the Actors Fund. Yeah. And that's cool because I've gone to the stage door and they're like, have this canvas of the night and they asked me to sign it. So that's been pretty cool. So that's why I feel like I can now put it on my resume, like I do paint, for real.
I love that. You know, you both started, I love the history of this, and you started at the Young Vic, you were then making a film and then coming to Broadway. That's so rare that you find out early on. Let's talk about the second iteration, which is the film version that you made. Did you do it in between the Young Vic and Broadway?
Yeah.
So tell us, how different is it? Was it in a big studio? Was it opened up differently?
Yeah, I think it gave us the opportunity to, let's meet Basquiat's mother. You know what? Let's meet Andy's mother. You know, the things that it's sort of difficult to accomplish on stage that film does uniquely well. You know, you can move in the space of a split second to a different, you know, and there's no costume change, quick costume change in the wings. You can just be there and be there quickly and for a little amount of time and get a lot of information in that way. So it allowed us to see them out clubbing, them at the nail salon, which is something they did together, you know, and it allowed us. Again, Anthony McCartan was great at saying, where do you see, or what are things that you feel you would like to do? And one of the things that we both really wanted to do, based on some really great pictures from a book, is them at the nail salon together, which just feels so incongruous and great. And so I don't know, it allowed us to have New York as a character more somehow, and it allowed us to start getting really clever. I think Kwame had some amazing ideas with how to capture them painting and see them painting without actually seeing the canvas. And Kwame and our amazing DP, Bob, they came up with such clever ideas for us to be able to shoot that.
And I mean, I think ultimately it's one of those things where we had to go, why does it need to be a movie? We had to ask ourselves, like, we're not just doing it just because we can do it. Because, like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, if it's a play, let it be a play. So it was that very honest conversation. And I think, you know, certain plays, certain scenes in plays, characters in plays can be expositional. They're there to serve. I'm here to deliver information. I'm here to tell you about this. And it's like, that works. We believe that in the theater. But on screen, you don't have to tell me and show me. So what we found is like, well, if we can show, then we don't have to say as much. So you have, you know, so what does that mean? Like, what then what are we saying? So I think it challenged us and Anthony, you know, to go, well, what is our story? What are the things, the relevancy? Like, how do we lean into that in a way that we couldn't on stage, because we can get to here, and we can learn about where he grew up and his mother and how that influenced and the people he's lost. And we had more information that we can show. so that was something that we spent a lot of time on, was just getting underneath the play of it all. So it didn't feel like, oh, I'm watching a play. And then there was conversations of, are there certain scenes where we are going to lean into that, where we go, no, this is going to be a scene with two people talking. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is. So the beautiful thing about film is you can find your film even after you filmed it, because a lot of times it lives in the edit. And that's kind of what Kwame and our team, are doing now, which is great because they have time. There's no rush. We're, so they're still coming to see the play, and they'll see a new thing, and that informs the way that they want to edit the film. Or if we need to reshoot something, because we found, and that was the other thing, they were like, there will be time for us to reshoot. So we're still finding things. I think the other day we found a new ending in our play, and we were like, we need to tell them so we can reshoot it. Yeah. We feel like this is better, you know what I mean? And they're open to that. So it's just been, I think, a very unique experience. I don't know of a production that has done this in this way and allowed each iteration to be different. We're not trying to do the same thing. At least I'm doing. You doing the same thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same thing, different clothes.
Yep.
Got you.
No, because
same with every performance I give.
I'm sure you've learned everything, what you learned on the film, you might have added into your New York performance here for Broadway, because you had more information, like you said, with meeting Andy's mother and, Jean-Michel's mother, whatever. I'm sure there was information you learned about these roles from the film that you've now added into New York, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you just allow your character to evolve, just as we do as humans. And the beautiful thing about working with Paul and Krista and Eric is we're down to just play. No one's phoning it in and doing, this is my track, this is my show. Me and Krista always joke that's not in my track. As if I can't do any extra because it's not in my track. But sometimes I'll walk around Paul and watch his eyes go, what are you doing? And we're just playing, why not? That's the joy of live theater. It can be different, you know what I mean? And Kwame has allowed the space for us for it to be different. It's not a musical where we need you to hit your mark or the treadmill's gonna sweep you up, you're gonna die. Nothing's moving on the stage but us, you know what I mean? And the words ain't changing, so we have to find a way to make it spark, something in us. So I love that Paul is down to do that every night with me, because that makes it thrilling, and you kind of forget that you've done 127 performances, you know what I mean? Until, this past week they brought out cupcakes, and they're like, congrats. You're like, oh my God, can't believe we've done it so many times, but it doesn't feel like that because we just kind of say yes to it every night and try and find something new.
Well, let's talk about the New York audience. I mean, you've done this at the Young Vic in London, and now this is a New York story.
Yeah.
I mean, so what is it like? I mean, I was telling them upstairs the night we went to the show, people are dancing in the audience with the DJ that's on stage. You see films and stuff. It's wild. What's it like? I'm sure there are lines that you hear now that get these big claps and roars in New York that you didn't get in London.
Yeah, every night when you say Republic of Brooklyn.
Yeah, I have a line that says, I'm from Brooklyn, Republic of Brooklyn, and it's like all of New York is just standing up, ready to whoop. And in London, it was so quiet. You know what I mean? It was so quiet. Yeah, very serious approach to that line in London. But no, they've been lovely. We have our DJ, which gets them into the vibe and the groove coming in. Yeah. Kwame, his thing was, let's funk it up. It was all about funking it up. You needed to walk into that space and feel like you are in New York in the 80s, a part of the crew, that Lower East Side crew. And you're about to meet these two individuals that had such an impact on the world. And then, in the way that we look at the world. So it's been thrilling. New York has been so great to us, standing ovations every night, and so generous with just us. And I think that, I feel so lucky. What about you? What do you feel?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I feel that the audience is the final cast member in some way, and you have a contract together, to share, and some nights, they're more willing. You know what I mean? And sometimes I was thinking about what you were saying about being willing to play, and then sometimes you hit this. I remember coming off stage and both of us saying, "How did it just feel so new and effortless today?" And I'm so confused as to why we couldn't just do that every night. And sometimes the muse is descending from one person and not the other, and sometimes vice versa, and sometimes it's happening for everybody on the same night, and those nights are the nights where you're like, God, I love this show. I love doing this, and the audience is there with you and wanting that, and that's an extraordinary feeling for somebody who's been, tucked away making movies for 25 years and not remembering that. I mean, there are lots of other, but both mediums have their sort of advantages.
Yeah, but that's the thing I crave with theater, and that's why I think I'll always come back, is there's nothing like that exchange of energy with your audience. Whether you're in a black box or you're in a Broadway house, it's like you feel the pulse and the heartbeat, and there's certain moments where a line is said and you feel all of the air taken out for your character, but for the house, and it's like, it feels so universal, and that's so unique and special. And we had that show that he's mentioning, where we just got off stage and we're like, why does it feel so easy? It feels like we're just present, the lines are there, jokes are happening, audience is with us, and it's just like, that's just theater, that's just what can happen. That's how it is so transformative and so effective, you know what I mean? And my first love, it taught me everything about being consistent and showing up and telling the story from beginning to end. There is no cut, and finding and playing and exploring. And then there's also those audiences that are quiet, but then as soon as the curtain, at the end, they're full up tears, and they're going on the ride in just a different way. Right, so you have to trust that as well. Like sometimes you have the quiet audiences or the timid, and as long as you're there telling the story, which is something that we just really try to hold ourselves to do, be there for each other, and know that it's going to be a blessing for someone out there. Someone's going to see this and be changed and affected by it. And if one person in a room is affected, then we did our job. You know what I mean? So that's been the most beautiful thing about being in New York, is it has felt like an embrace of people excited to see me back on stage, but to have Paul on stage. He walks out and it's full clap every night. And I love that, because he works so hard and he cares. And everyone that's been a part of our production has cared and imbued this project with love and heart. So it just feels nice to be loved on in return.
Yeah, beautifully put. Paul, what you've enjoyed the most about making your Broadway debut, being on stage, being here in New York? This is a very unique experience, this show, and what you're going through.
Well, I was very frightened of it initially, like I say, again, 25 years. No, it doesn't look like it. 25 years, it's because of the Circa Royal. But I have, the thing that it's really given me and taught me is that stress. I remember I was standing backstage, and there's this little blinking red light. You have to press the goddamn light, and then it goes solid, and then it goes green and tells you to go on. And I remember on the first night just thinking, what if I don't press the button? Maybe I won't have to go on. I was so anxious. And then just thought, what is any of this stress and anxiety that I bring into, not just here, but in my life, actually doing for me? I mean, what does it do for me? Answer was absolutely nothing. I'm so worried about a crisis coming, that when a crisis does come, I'm exhausted by worrying about all of the ones that didn't come. And, 90% at the grand old age of 52, 90% of the things that I've been worried about in my life haven't ever happened. And I'm just tired by the time that they do. So I just took a big breath, pressed the button, and I was totally without any anxiety, fear, or anything. I felt totally at home, like there had been no those 25 years. There was no. And I really do feel like I've brought that more into my life. That feeling of just of letting go and trusting and trusting in the moment, and frankly trusting myself in a way that I don't think I've ever been very good at as as an actor or as a human, a father, a friend of the, you know, and I think it's actually really been helpful in that way, I think.
That is beautiful. Thank you for that. We are just about out of time, but I just have to congratulate Jeremy on your latest film, your debut film, The Inspection. I was there at Mark and I had the best time at that. That film is so beautiful. You received so many accolades already, a Golden Globe nomination, so much more coming your way. What did you enjoy the most about working on that film?
We shot that film in 19 days.
19 days.
It was extremely ambitious to shoot that film in the middle of the summer in Jackson, Mississippi, 117-degree weather. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. And that project came at a time in my life where I had stepped away from another project. I wasn't being treated fairly or correctly by a director, and I chose me. And I was like, I don't want to be in.
Yep, go right ahead.
No. You know, I think being an artist takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith, and it costs a lot. You know, you give so much of yourself away. So in knowing that this is a part of my calling and what I am supposed to do, because we also feel that conviction of like, but I am an artist at the end of the day, I have to be around rooms and with people that only encourage me to be the best version of myself and allow me to soar and to fly. And sometimes you don't know what that feels like if people aren't allowing you to do that. So I think the thing I'm most proud about with that film is just I was in a room very similar to the collaboration with a director that saw me first and wanted me in his role, or wanted me in this role before any studio signed on, because I didn't have a lead studio debut before this. So, he took a chance on me and allowed me to fly. And because I knew what it felt like to fly there, I could then trust myself to fly in the collaboration. So it's one of those things where I'm just going to continue to step into rooms and work with people that are just, rooted in a good place and want the best for the art, but very similar to Paul, also trusting that you got to let it go. And be used for something that's bigger than you. So get out of your head, get out of the way of being used as a blessing and for something that can touch someone's heart. So I think our film, The Inspection, is doing that. And all of these awards and nominations are just affirmations of the hard work that we put into, this film. And very similar with the collaboration. This is something we've spent so much time on. So it's kind of like, how do we value our worth in it? Is it with reviews or is it just in how we feel? And we're choosing to go, it's how we feel. You can't take that away from me. What I feel every night performing on that stage with Paul is a dream come true, is like soaring, is flying. And I feel like I've learned and stretched myself as an actor, as an artist. So I'm going to continue to use that to inform the decisions, down the line.
Beautiful. Like I said, The Inspection, such a fabulous movie. As we close out here, Paul, I want to thank you because of your work in the Marvel universe. There are many people who are like, oh, I know him from these films. He does something called live theater. And you're introducing them to this whole new world, which it happened to us from a TV person we knew or a film person. And I want to thank you for introducing a whole new audience coming to the theater for the first time, because I know you're from another medium.
Well, that's kind. Thank you very much.
That must make you feel really good, does it? That you're introducing people to the world of theater?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's, it's really gratifying for me. Sometimes I'll talk to young actors and I say, so what are you interested in doing? They say, I want to be a superhero. And I just think, oh man, you'll notice that Kevin Feige is casting classically trained actors a lot of the time in these roles because it takes a lot to shoulder this stuff up the hill. So I think it's, what I hope, I don't think about it much, but now you've mentioned it, what I hope those kids, if they are coming because they like the vision in in Marvel, is they come in and they feel inspired to maybe look at this business in a different way that isn't only business, and feel inspired to push themselves and stretch ourselves in the same way that I think Jeremy and I have. It was so sweet what you said, but I want you to know that absolutely the feeling is reciprocated to have been stretched and have those muscles trained again has been has been a real gift. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here. You have a show tonight.
We have a show tonight.
Thank you once again for joining me. The collaboration has been extended again today. We're extended out through February 11th at Manhattan Theater Club's Samuel J. Friedman Theater. Some of the finest actors you're going to see. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Jeremy Pope, Paul Bettany.